Well, Michael, I'd like to get back to that newspaper. You said it was called the Flint Voice?
Yeah, the Flint Voice, right.
What made you decide to start a newspaper? And what was it? I mean, was this a weekly? Did you have any staff? Or?
Well, I started my first newspaper in 4th grade, and the nuns shut it down after, after a few issues. And so I restarted it in 6th grade, and they shut it down then. And I restarted it in 8th grade, and then the priest, I don't know, the bishop, they all got involved in it to try and stop me from putting this little newspaper out.
Why did they want to shut it down?
Well, because I was writing about things that we weren't supposed to be discussing, especially in the Catholic Church. So I think I referred to it as a woman-hating institution. Well, it just seemed odd to me as a child that, you know, I mean, I grew up in a family. I mean, I've always, in every machination of a family I've been a part of, I've been the minority as the male. I mean, I had a mother and 2 sisters, no brothers, so my dad and I were, you know, doing the dishes, and then, you know, I have a wife and a daughter. So I was just as a child, my mom was really good about stuff like this, about the gender stuff, and how my sisters were treated, and what was expected of them and me, and all of that. So I got really lucky on that end. And these were just working class people. My dad worked on the assembly line building spark plugs for GM cars. So, so by the time I was, I guess, 19 years old, I decided to try and do a newspaper for real, and figured out how to do it, and tried to raise some ad money and all that, and I didn't get very far. And I heard this guy was going to play a concert over in Grand Rapids, Michigan. His name was Harry Chapin. Mm-hmm. And I knew he did a lot of benefits, and I thought, well, maybe I could just show him this newspaper and what we're doing. And so I drove over to Grand Rapids. I snuck backstage. I'm about to open his dressing room door. Patty, this is like, I'm like the stalker that's backstage. You know? Anyways, the security guy grabs me by the shoulder and like, where do you think you're going? I was just going in there to see Mr. Chapin, you know, we're going to talk about. No, you're not. Yeah! You know, he starts to, like, you know, yank me back, and Harry opens the door and he goes, what's going on out here? Oh, this guy says he's here to see you. And he said, well, let him come in and see me. And the guy just had to let go of me, and I went in and I told him what we were trying to do. I told him what was going on in Flint. It was being ignored by the rest of the country. Thousands of people were losing their jobs. But nobody was really talking about, you know, other than the steel industry, everything, at least on the surface, seemed to be pretty hunky-dory then in the you know, late 70s. So he came to Flint every year and did a huge benefit concert for us, and it funded the paper for us, and that's how I was able to do that for 10 years, and it was great. And we did a lot of things, and we were raided by the police because of the story we were doing on the mayor. He sent the police literally to the printing press in Lapeer, Michigan, and when it walked in with a warrant that they got from a judge, and seized the plates off the printing press as it was printing our paper, and literally took the plates and all the papers that had already been printed. And so it caused a big ruckus, and it, you know, made the national news and all that. And then some congressmen asked me to come and testify about passing a shield law, which was eventually passed. And it was pretty much based on the raid at our paper and this CBS affiliate, I think it was in Boise, Idaho, that also was raided by the police. And it was a federal law that was passed to prohibit police. They just simply cannot enter a newsroom unless they're literally chasing a murder suspect that's just happened to run in to the newsroom. But it's you know, it was a fairly strong law, and it was good. And that's so those are kind of my early experiences with it. And I tell you, I appreciate the nuns for trying to put the clamp on it, because it really just made me want to do it more. And I'm grateful to them. In fact, when I made Sicko, I decided to do the premiere of the film at the nuns, the convent house, where they all the nuns I had would be in their 80s and 90s, and so I went and set up a screen and showed them the film. And of course, nuns are great because they know the bullshit that goes on in the Catholic Church, and they were always more radical and more anti-war and all of that, because obviously they were suffering their own oppression being nuns and just taking it out on the rest of us.
Well, when Roger and me came, 89 it came out, right?
Yeah, 89, right.
Because I remember I was, at that time, going through Central America and the maquilas in northern Mexico, and Honduras, the big maquila centers, Puerto Cortez, trying to, I hadn't heard about the movie, but I was trying to get my paper to pay more attention to all of these jobs that were fleeing to Central America and to northern Mexico. And I'm in my managing editor's office one day trying to convince him that I need to be able to go back down there. And he said, "Have you seen Roger and Me?" I said, "What?" "Yeah, this film. You got to see this film." And so it was already immediately had an impact on the commercial media, even though maybe they weren't paying visibly that much attention to it. But could you talk about the impact of this deindustrialization that occurred not just in Flint, but throughout the Midwest, as all these jobs went to Mexico, and now, of course, to China and Vietnam and other places?
Well, when I had my paper, I actually, about 6 years before you went down there, I went down there and I snuck into some of these places because they were starting to move these jobs out of Flint and move them there, and I wanted to see what the conditions were like, and I did some stories about it. And of course, the PR at the time was that this was going to raise the standard of living of Mexican people, and they would be just like us in 20 years. Well, of course, here we are 20 plus years later, and the Mexican people still have a pretty tough existence, including those who work in the maquiladora factories along the border there. I snuck into this thing in Acapulco there. Reagan's Department of Commerce was hosting a meeting for U.S. businesses who wanted to move to Mexico to help them make that move, and so they were being wined and dined in Acapulco, and I made up an identity for myself and cut my hair and tried to look as businesslike as possible. And I got into it, and so I spent the weekend there going to these sort of semi-private meetings about how to rig the whole thing so I could move what I said was my auto parts business from Saginaw, Michigan to Mexico. And it was I was nervous the whole time, though, because I thought, if they find this out, I'm just going to have the living crap beat out of me. But they didn't, but this is all before Roger and Me. And I'm sorry I didn't get to your